Welcome to the reality show brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK, where we apply the practical philosophical system of objectivism to everything. And today we have a great panel of guests here to discuss three topics, which I think we will really have to apply objectivism to. The first topic is this: baby boomers will pay billions in an inheritance tax of 40%. Now, this is much higher than the inheritance tax in the rest of Europe. It's very controversial in the UK, as it should be, even to non-objectivists. What do you think about the morality of the inheritance taxes? That will be the first concept on the table. The second one will be candidates are vying for the Republican nomination. There'll be a debate, I believe, tonight. Donald Trump will be absent. In fact, he will be trying to probably compete with the other runners, Republican runners, by his interview with Tucker Carlson. What do we make of Trump's absence? Who do we think will win the debate tonight? Is there a winner in the Republican Party? And the third and final topic has to do with AI, the evil AI. And they're saying that 1 in 10 workers will have to sort of retool their skills due to artificial intelligence by 2027. So what do we think about that? Is it understandable that people fear losing their jobs because of AI? Will it lead to progress in the future? Is there anything philosophical motivating these fears? To help us unpack all these crazy issues, we have a great panel, many of whom you are familiar with. Linda Cordair, how you doing? Waz Art, and Michael Liebowitz. Folks, I'm going to throw this out there to the panel at large. What do you think of this 40% tax, death tax, estate tax, inheritance tax that's going to be going on for the boomers of the UK? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And if it's bad or good, why?
I'll go. Tax is bad. There are other ways, at least in the United States, to gift money before you die, create trusts. I don't know how this applies in the UK, and we don't have anybody from the UK on the panel today, but there are many, many ways that I've seen online. 40% is absurd. I cannot imagine anybody thinking, when I die, 40% of what I've worked so hard for is going to go to the government. I mean, who gets this? The Queen, the King? I don't know. I think it's absurd.
Yeah, but doesn't it contribute to this egalitarian notion that we should all start from the same place? And doesn't it suck that some people have greater opportunity than others because their parents work so hard, they're able to leave them with this really great starting package of cash and resources to start from? Shouldn't we equalize the playing field by knocking these folks down a peg or two?
Unbelievable. What a mess.
Waz, what do you say to this? You're an artist. Come on, you've got to be for this thing called egalitarianism. You got to be for knocking the feet out from under the rich folks and giving the poor one leg up.
No, not really.
Okay.
Do not agree with the inheritance tax, basically on principle, but because I consider it a redundant tax, or a double tax. The people who are paying this tax have already paid in through their income tax and savings tax and sales tax, and all the money that they have has already been taxed. And now you're going to tax the sum of it again on top of all the other taxes. I think it's great some people get a leg up because the only other option is no one gets a leg up. If you're constantly going after the people that are ahead, then you're inevitably just going to pull them back to equal everyone out, and then no one will be ahead. And I don't think society can last that way. And it's 40% is just insane. I didn't realize, though, I haven't looked into it in a bit, but the US inheritance tax, well, it's the estate tax here, is also 40%, which I wasn't aware it was that high. But can you believe there are places where it's higher? In Belgium, it said that it was 80% inheritance tax. Now they are really trying for the egalitarian thing there, and it just comes down to the fact that if you're good with your wealth, if you've been good with your wealth over your whole life, then they will just take more of it. So I can't see anything right about that.
So penalizing virtue. What do you think, Michael?
Well, this is kind of low hanging fruit because it's a 40% tax. Even if you give money away within 7 years of your death, that can be taxed as well. So they're not allowing you to escape it. And Great Britain, from what I understand, has a lot of redistribution through the healthcare system and whatnot. So that makes it an easy tax to attack. But I would say, what if it was a 1% inheritance tax that was only going to the military and police, and it was only going to apply to, say, 1% of the country? I would still say it was wrong. It involves the initiation of force, and it involves the violation of rights. I think that that's the important thing, is to identify the principle that if it's compulsory, it's wrong, period. And it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. That to me is the vital point. But this is just silly. I mean, 40% of your income, and they're going to tax you even if you give the money away. It's just stupid.
Well, the power to tax is the power to compel money away from people. So how do you deal with this in a free society? Rand had a very interesting idea for voluntary taxation, but I mean, this brings up an interesting topic. This is a fundamental issue with libertarians and anarchists. I sort of had a long 2.5-hour discussion with one on a podcast yesterday about the nature of the state and of compulsion. We had some very compelling differences, I think. So how do we get around that? How do we negotiate this territory? How do we have a state, which we should have if we're going to have a capitalist society, without this power of compulsory taxation?
Well, I mean, the problem is people, when they ask this question, they assume the state the size that it is now. And they say, well, no one's going to volunteer to give this much money. And that may be true. But if you had a proper government that all it did was protect lives, liberty, and property, provided for police, courts, and the military, it would be a heck of a lot cheaper, especially when you're not getting involved in foreign wars and, giving money to every country that comes along. But so you have voluntary contributions, like Rand proposed a lottery. I've seen Murray Rothbard propose that criminal offenders that are in prison pay for their own incarceration through some sort of labor. And I'm sure that creative minds could come up with more things. But I think the important thing to first do is identify the principle. Because once you identify the principle, then you come up with solutions. And I think that there are solutions out there, starting with voluntary contributions.
Yeah, and one of the ways I think Rand suggested was to, in employment, have a contract for employment. And in that contract, you paid the government a stipend for insurance, which would become your taxation. You could also opt out of it, of course, but you would not be able to take advantage necessarily of the due process, right? Through a waiver is a waiver of rights, in a sense. Do you guys think that there's a difference between inheritance tax and other kinds of taxation, or is it all just the initiation of the use of force?
I say it all involves the initiation of force. I don't, whether it be, I mean, some people say, well, tariffs are good because they see it as taxing foreigners, but foreigners are human as well. And tariffs don't tax them anyway. They tax the businesses that are importing the goods. But yeah, any kind of tax, anytime somebody takes something from you that's not without your permission, it's wrong. And I mean, I've been in prison with a lot of guys who did the same thing, and they thought they had some pretty altruistic reasons for doing it too. Some of them, they had to take care of their kid or their wife, or they needed health care or whatever. And nobody thinks that's justified. But somehow when people wear suits and they're voted into office, it becomes okay. It's not okay.
I couldn't say it any better myself. Linda, what say you? Is there a difference between an inheritance tax and a normal tax?
Tax is tax. If you're taxing someone, whether it's physically, mentally, or monetarily, you are taking something that belongs to them. And right now we're in the process of having a landlord issue where she's living rent-free in my head, and that is taxing. Stop the taxing.
Oh, I like that. So Biden's taxing me by living rent-free in my head. All his stupidity is it's draining me. It's parasitic. So maybe I should file a claim against the government. Waz, what say you? Is there a difference between these types of taxation, or are we going to agree as a panel of objectivists that taxation is force and force is bad?
Yeah, I agree. All taxation is wrong, just on a fundamental level. I just consider the inheritance type tax to be particularly insidious because it's a tax after so many other taxes have already been levied.
It's
But-
sort of like spitting on somebody's grave, isn't it? It's sort of like
Right. In a way,
final
yeah.
FU.
It's the last thing a dying person does is decide who their life's work is going to go to, and the government thinks they can step in between that, and that's just wrong. But at the same time, they have the NHS, and how else are they going to pay for it? And I also assume that the baby boomers are probably going to be a pretty massive expense on the NHS, either already or coming up. So I don't know what they're supposed to do. It's kind of like, well, if you are getting your inheritance taxed at that rate, maybe you shouldn't have voted for the NHS. I don't know.
You know,
here's
as I tell, oh,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead, Linda.
here's an analogy, right? So they are taking a gift. They are taking a massive percentage of a gift. You're on your way to a birthday party and you've got this great gift that you're bringing for whoever you're coming in. And just as you go to walk in the door at the party, there stands somebody from the government, says, no, 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 no. We're going to take 40% of that. That person doesn't deserve that. Even though you want them to have it, you're gifting it to them. We're going to take that because we know better. We can do better with it than they can. And I mean, that's as simple as I can break it down.
Yeah, it's infantilizing. And as I tell my friends in Europe, why are you complaining? You gave away your moral agency when you give the responsibility for your medical care, for your housing, for your future, for your retirement to these bureaucrats. What do you expect? They're your sugar daddy. So stop complaining. Stop complaining. Well, this is the mess we get ourselves into with an altruistic system. So it tells me that we have to, as objectivists, do a even better job at highlighting the differences between altruism, collectivism, and individualism and rational self-interest, because they've been winning the argument. I think we have the ability now, with the vast disillusionment out there, to turn things around a little bit, to start turning things in our direction. Michael, do you agree or disagree? I mean, it's a philosophical desert out there, to be sure, but people are searching for solutions.
First, I just want to say that when I say that taxes are equal, I meant ethically as far as force. There certainly are taxes that are more harmful to the economy than other, specifically taxes on profits and on capital are harmful to the economy at large. I'm not so optimistic. In 2008, when Obama got elected, I thought, okay, this is great. He's going to run the economy into the ground. People are going to see that capitalism is the answer, and it'll be much easier to make arguments. And then with the rising of Rand Paul and Ron Paul in this country, I thought, okay, people are coming around to see free markets. But then they picked Trump for the Republicans. And since then, things have gone from bad to worse. I mean, the anti-intellectualism in America, I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but it's absurd. I mean, you can't even agree on basic facts any longer. So I'm not optimistic. I'm still hopeful because I always hope for a better future, but I really see nothing to say that people are becoming more reasonable in their assessments or in their belief systems.
Yeah, on the one hand, it was quite heartening to see an anti-tax movement spring up on the heels of Obama's election. And then it was disheartening to see that co-opted by the religious right and turned into something that it shouldn't have been turned into. The Tea Party movement definitely had some potential to become something great, and it fizzled out, of course, in conservatism, which is sort of the topic of the next, our next topic here. We have the presidential debates, the Republican side of it coming up shortly. All of the candidates will be there. I think the highest has about an 8 or 9%, 16%, I think, approval rating from the base that will be electing them in the primaries. But the front runner, Trump, will not be there. What do you think about this? I don't know if this seems rather unprecedented that, at least in my lifetime, I've never known a candidate to not participate in a debate event, a front runner in particular. The Democrats are worse. Biden is refusing all debates, and there are people coming up to challenge him, and the DNC is backing him. So I don't think they're going to have any debates at all. So, but what say you about Trump's absence, his attempt to compete with the debates, with the Tucker Carlson release of the Tucker Carlson interview? This smacks of some dangerous malignant narcissism to me. And what do you think about the field of the Republicans? Is there anyone in this field worth paying attention to? I'll start with you, Michael. You look like you're first on my list.
I go back to Obama again, because I remember when Obama was running, and Obama said that he was the one that could get everybody to work together. He was different than everybody else, and he was going to make everything great. And then he couldn't. And then he came out and he said, well, how can I get things done? Not a direct quote, but how can I get things done with these recalcitrant Republicans that, they don't want to get on board? But wait a second, you said that you could do it. And it's a similar thing for me with Donald Trump, because Trump said the same thing. He was the guy that could get everybody to work together, and then he couldn't do it. And then he blames the Democrats. And what that has to do with this is that everybody says that he's the, anti-establishment guy. But then I'm hearing Trump supporters say now, well, this is the smart political decision to not get involved in this debate. But hold on, I thought he was the anti-politician. So why is he making decisions based on political calculation? And that goes back to what we talked about before. There's just no reason here. People that back Trump, and I'm not talking about the guy or the lady who says, you know what, I have to vote for somebody, I'm going to vote for him because there's just no one good. I'm talking about his core supporters. There's just no reasoning with him. They back him no matter what. And that's why I think he's probably going to get the nomination. And it's just going to be another disaster. And for me, as a sort of a sports fan, I'd like to have somebody to root for in these contests. And there's nobody. There's nothing to root for. There's nothing to be excited about. There's nothing even close. I'm going to watch the debates tonight, but I mean, Chris Christie and Mike Pence, all of a sudden they see the evils of Trump. Really? Like you didn't see that before? I mean, if you didn't, then you're too stupid to be president. And if you did, you're just dishonest scumbags.
And what about Vivek? What do you think of him? He seems to be straddling the line in the most intelligent possible way. He seems to be making all the right moves, I think, to the MAGA movement without committing to the MAGA movement, and at the same time setting himself apart. To me, that makes him really a really scary guy, to be honest with you, because he's willing to bullshit to a large degree, and he knows how to play the political game, even though he's never been in politics before. What do you think of this guy? I actually did a video with him, not intentionally, but it was on woke capitalism. I was one of the people interviewed, and there were three of us that were interviewed, and he was one of them. And he was fairly articulate in that interview. He's an articulate guy, and I think he'll have that over some of the other folks in the podium. I think he might gain some points. What do you think?
I don't know enough about him to offer an intelligent opinion. What I have seen some things I didn't like. I remember not liking at the time, but I don't remember what they were, to be honest with you. But I do know that a lot of people support him who I wouldn't support, like the other comments I hear them making. So I don't know. I'll certainly listen to him, but I'm not optimistic.
Linda, what say you about this fiasco called the Republican Party and their debate tonight?
I think we just need to take a year off and not have an election until we can find somebody worth voting for. I think, frankly, as much as I don't like Trump, I think him backing out is brilliant. What are we doing? We're talking about it. We're talking about Trump. It is absolutely malignant narcissism, but that's what he wants. That's what he's all about. And so there isn't an opportunity to make him look stupid if he can't open his mouth in front of other people and he avoids the debate. I want to be optimistic. I just, you know what, to me, it's like a horse race full of nags. There is nobody that deserves to win this race.
I would have to agree with you, but do we really need a debate to see that he's doesn't have a lot going on the ball intellectually? I mean, we've had 8 years of it. We've seen him in office already. We've seen his posts on Twitter and now Truth Social. We've seen this. I mean,
right. But look at the amount of support he has, and he doesn't want to lose any of those supporters. And he certainly takes the chance of that every time he opens his mouth. So I just think that by not showing up, we're talking about it. It's become all the rage. I mean, it's a topic of conversation. Trump. And it's like having something subliminally. The people who back him are going to vote for him, probably regardless of what he says, but let the other ones duke it out. And then he's just going to sit there and watch.
Yeah, maybe. In a way, Michael, even though this is a political calculation, he's positioning himself again as an outsider, and the people on the debate platform as sort of establishmentarians fighting it out amongst themselves, and he's above the fray a little bit. He's still positioning himself as an outsider, which is sort of a winning strategy for the reprehensibles of the world. I think they're tired of being crapped on. They're now taking the outsider stance defiantly, and in some respects, Trump is their shield, right? Regardless of how reprehensible he is on so many different levels, I think it's a big middle finger to the establishment, and that's all they care about at the moment. They don't care about statesmanship, principle, intellectual depth. None of that matters. What matters is saying F you to the establishment, and they think this guy's going to do it, even though in his 4 years of office he didn't really do much to change the establishment at all.
No, the problem is that what you just said is that's a narrative that's out there. And I think there's probably some truth to it. But a lot of Trump people say he had the strongest economy ever, which isn't true. He had the lowest unemployment ever, also not true. And they say he's very pro-capitalist, not true. So they ascribe traits to him that he doesn't have, that if he had, I would support him. So I don't know if it's just a matter, because a lot of them will follow up and say, we know his faults, but then they go on to deny his faults. It's the most peculiar, bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. What's going on with this guy and his supporters? It almost defies analysis to me.
And I think I should remind Trump supporters that Trump was perfectly okay with negative interest rates. He wanted the Fed to go negative because he wanted to stoke the economy. And it's the Fed's policies and easy credit, easy money that creates these boom bust cycles that we've become so terribly familiar with during our lifetime. And so let me just tell you, folks, negative interest rates means that you're spending, you can't save. You are forced to spend because your money tomorrow will be worth less than it is today. It's the opposite of the kind of economy that actually does thrive. In a free economy, savings is encouraged, and investment is regulated by insurance, or excuse me, by these kinds of interest rates. And if you have a negative interest rate, it's easy credit, easy money, and people will do lots of crazy things when money's that easy. Woz, what say you? Do you think this Republican debate is as empty as the rest of us? What do you think about Trump's non-commitment to perform on the debate?
Oh, I'm not surprised at all that he decided not to do it. Like Linda said, it's extremely politically smart. And it superficially makes him still look like an outsider, even though he's just adopting all the fundamental tactics of a regular politician. Because, yeah, the less people see him talk, the less they'll see the contradictions, and the more they can keep believing he's some knight in shining armor capitalist. But yeah, I don't know.
Do contradictions really matter nowadays? I mean, that's such an objectivist thing. Logic is weeding out contradictions, and it seems like the political left and the political right don't care about those things anymore.
Nope, they don't care about ideas or contradictions or truth even. You know, lying is fine because it gets things done in the political realm.
Can I add that I don't think this was his idea? I think this was a very smart campaign manager that said, you need to sit this one out, because it's not his personality to back off. He's so used to doing it his way. And I think someone said, you need to be quiet.
He's not really, though. He's going to be on Tucker and at the same day, right? Or I don't know, same time. So he's not really sitting back. He's just controlling the narrative.
Absolutely. He's going to have more control with Tucker than he is with a
Oh, yeah. I mean, the unscripted nature of a debate would be a disaster for him, especially with people who are actually out to attack him a little bit more. Most of them aren't, but that may be politically smart for them too. But I just wanted to say something about Vivek. I see him as a lesser of three evils in a way. While he is bad on abortion and he buys into the religious tripe and the cultural stuff, he is the only one to explicitly talk about capitalism. And he is also apparently linked with Alex Epstein. And uses a lot of Alex's talking points and actually talks with him on occasion. I don't know to what extent, but I think he will be the best on energy or environmentalist policy, which is a big issue in this. You know, it affects the economy, it affects everything. So
I certainly think it's the biggest issue today. It's the way in which the altruist collectivist axis is really trying to wheedle their way into the economy and change things. So
right, it sets him apart because they all talk about the religious things, so they're awash there. They all talk about the cultural things, so they're awash there. But all of them are so wishy-washy on the economy. To have someone come out that's actually a little bit more principled might be a swing in the right direction, but I don't know. I have little hope. It will depend on the debate.
I think
I'm actually only going to be an hour and a half. I'm less than an hour and a half away from the debate, being in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So I could take a trip down there if I really wanted to torture myself. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Don't do it. Don't do it once. You can see it from TV if you want, and then you can have the power to turn it off.
Exactly.
And then you're home.
Or just not turn it on to begin with.
Right. But I do think Vivek's star is going to rise a little bit more after these debates. He is playing a very clever political game. And how much of this cultural stuff, how much of the abortion stuff, how much of the religion stuff, how much of that is just a nod in the direction of, the dominant Republican culture but not taken very seriously. I guess we'll never know, since they have to make it a part of their platform. But it is scary that religion has such a prominent position in the Republican Party. They'll never know how deeply that wounds every respectable and interesting and intelligent position they have, unfortunately. Well, folks, I think we all agree on that. So Australia's workforce is going to have to be retraining 10%, one in 10 of its workforce by 2027, because evil AI is raising its monstrous head to change the economy. What I liked about this article, though, was that it talked about all the positives of technology, and how it ended on the note of, well, actually what we've just been saying here isn't true. It's actually going to supply more jobs. It's actually going to make people more productive. And that's actually going to create more stimulus to the economy and going to work for a net benefit. What say you, Michael? Are you afraid of AI?
Not even a little bit.
Me neither. Is there a philosophical?
There's a whole lot. I mean, historically, the car is replacing the horse. People are always afraid of the newest gadgets, the newest thing. It's always going to put people out of work. We're always going to hell in a handbasket, and it's never happened. Of course, the reply to that is, well, it may happen this time. Okay, fine, it may. I doubt it. I think it defies logic to think it will. With technology, our lives get better. But the question that was asked, I believe, was something to the effect of, are they right to be afraid for their jobs? And I'm reminded of an essay in The Virtue of Selfishness, Their Divine Right of Stagnation, it was called. And it was about people that think like they're entitled to their job, their business. Well, it's a mom and pop shop. Go to the mom and pop shop. How about if I just go to the store that's going to give me the best product at the best deal? Those people in the mom and pop store didn't go into business to serve Michael Liebowitz, and Michael Liebowitz isn't spending his money to serve the mom and pop store. So I think that it's a very entitled mentality. I think we see it in the manufacturing sector here in America, where they don't want competition from foreign companies, and it's unfortunate. And part of it is the altruistic ethic that you've been talking about, where everybody should be making it, everybody should have a right. But part of it isn't, because it's anti other people. It's anti-foreigners or anti-big companies or big business or whatever. But either way, I think it's good economically, and I don't think it's going to cause harm. And I think it's what ultimately spurs growth and progress. And I'm all for it. Bring it on.
So the philosophical idea behind it is an ethical one, probably linked to altruism. But is there a wider philosophy at work here with respect to generating the fear over AI?
Well, the Luddites, I mean, we could always go back to them, I suppose. I mean, people in general seem to fear anything that they deem not natural. But to me, everything's natural because if it exists, it was made by something in nature. So I don't see it as that. But like people hear genetically modified food, oh my God, it's got to be horrible, even though there's no evidence it is. Or you spray DDT to kill mosquitoes, oh my God, it's going to kill us all, even though it doesn't. And it's just, I don't think it's innate. I think it maybe go back to the lack of reason or the lack of seeking out evidence that exists, that people fear the unknown.
Perhaps we can harken back to Rousseau and his idea of the noble savage, and the idea that civilization corrupts, and is somehow the older you get, the more civilized you get, the further from some intuitive, natural, in tune with nature kind of being that you would be without civilization, without the artifices of civilization. I say, fuck Rousseau. Artifices are great. That's the human way of naturally dealing with the environment, altering our environment to give us more of the one unrenewable resource there is, time. If AI can give us more time to do the things that we would rather be doing, I say fantastic. Linda, what say you to this situation in Australia?
I think this is what happens when you demand higher wages for entry-level jobs. And you can go right to the fast food industry to see what happened, right? They wanted more than $10, $12 an hour. They started pushing and created higher minimum wage for what? Standing at a cash register and pushing buttons. So those industries answered back by taking advantage of what was starting to happen, the technology. All of a sudden, you can walk up, punch in your own order. Hopefully it comes out right, but there's that many less people that they have to employ, that they have to pay all of these taxes on. And we've seen this coming for a long time. This is, from my childhood, we were talking about the self-flying helicopters, right? This is the Jetsons. These are the things that are starting to happen that we were growing up thinking, how cool is that going to be when I can just ask a replicator to make me a cup of Earl Grey tea? Yes, I'm a Trekkie, but it's happening. And now that it's happening, it's creating fear. Well, irrationality feeds fear. And then you've got a forest fire of people, instead of wanting to work smarter and not harder, are afraid to actually do something that they would enjoy more, that they're afraid to go to the beach instead of having to spend 80 hours a week working on something when maybe AI can take 20 hours off their plate. I'm just now starting to dabble with AI for some of the social media that we're doing. And I was shocked. I said, write me an outline for an art care guide that I can publish. And in fewer than maybe 15 seconds, it probably saved me 10 hours of work. So yes, bring it on. I will be selective how I use AI, but wherever it can make my life easier, I'm all for it.
Yeah, just for any Writers Guild folks out there that may be terrified of this, I know you're on strike right now, and part of the reason you're on strike is because you think AI is going to take over your job. It really won't. I mean, if you look at all the streaming programs that are out there now, we're in a golden age of television. The narratives are so interesting and original. There's no possible way AI could come up with it. It might be able to do, some kind of formulaic TV, a procedural, in which case, great. You don't need 20 writers to churn out a procedural. Just give it to the AI, let two or three of them tweak it to give it some sense of originality and humanness, and pass it through. But the other shows, look, AI isn't evolved enough. My wife and I have been working with AI with script for the script outline for a while, and the amount of work you have to do just to tweak it to come up with original storylines is really, really intensive. So, but to write an outline for, as you said, certain programs, to write a business letter, things that would really take up time, but time that you'd rather spend somewhere else, AI is perfect for it, and there's no reason why we can't use it to help us, to give us that time that we need.
My hope for some of these people that it's scaring, find something better. If you think this is going to take away from your life, then get more creative and get out there and find something that you can be happier doing that you're not afraid of.
How dare you make somebody's life their own responsibility? That's really weird. and that's totally out of step with the culture. Woz, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all you guys. I'm really excited about AI actually, particularly in the area of medical technology, being able to plug in different variables, and I bet you the AI is going to come up with different answers that no one's ever thought of before. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, I think it's a lot of Ludditism, people afraid of new things, different things. But I think it actually comes down to people want life to be automatic. I see this on the conservative side. They want morality to be automatic. They want it to be given to you on a plate from the Bible, and that's how you do it. The left kind of wants life to be automatic, your sustenance and everything should be given to you. They all want things to stay the same as when they grew up. The environmentalists want all the same birds, all the same animals, the same lakes. Nothing can change, and if it does, then it's a disaster. I think there's something tied together with all of this, and it fits with what Michael was saying about the divine right of stagnation, which I was going to bring up actually. That I think the divine right of stagnation comes from the fact that people think that because you learned and trained with a certain profession, that profession should exist or be provided for you for the rest of your life, which is just ridiculous. And people just don't like to put in the effort to change, even though a lot of times it's for the better, and it's not as much effort as you think. A lot of the positions they're worried about losing, these are public service positions, and you're good at numbers. There's just so many things you can do with those skills outside of your profession. People lack the imagination and the courage to make their life better.
I'm reminded of students that ask me in class, how can you become a successful actor? And I know they're looking for the magic pill, but I always say, work hard. Yep. Work hard, and sooner or later opportunity will collide with your work ethic. It may not, but it most likely will. And they always look at me like I have 5 heads, because that's the exact wrong answer. They want that instantaneous thing. They want a revelation. They want an epiphany. They want things to come to them in the same way. And maybe that's why reason is so unpopular today, because reason takes work. Introspection takes work. Changing yourself, Michael, you're an admirable example of this. Changing yourself from one person to another is possible. Personal transformation is possible. It just takes a lot of hard work, and people don't want to put in that sweat, right? They all want to be Eddie Van Halen. They just don't want to spend 12 hours a day on the guitar. So, well, folks, I mean, I'm afraid that we've offered some interesting solutions, but are they solutions anybody's going to take? I don't know, because it requires a little bit of mental effort. People don't want to make that effort. I have some super chats here. Jonathan Honig with $3.99. Thanks, Jonathan. Regina, €5. Thank you. Well, we have no announcements, folks, and I think we've covered this territory as much as we can cover it. Any final things to say before the reality show bids the objectivist and non-objectivist community adieu for the day?
Well, we've agreed on everything, so I think we should have a quick topic that we can argue about. What do you think? Best TV show of all time?
Oh, man.
Oh, okay. You go first. I'm going to have to think about this. You go first.
I'm saying House.
Wow. Okay.
You, Laurie, and House. Best TV show ever. By far. Not even close.
Really?
Yes. In terms of dialogue, storylines, awesome show.
Okay. Linda, do you have one?
Gosh, it's hard to pick, but if I have to, I'll say Frasier.
Wow. Okay. Very good. Woz, do you have one?
Oh man, it's so tough. I really like John Adams back in the day on HBO. Maybe a lot of people haven't seen it, but I thought that was a good series.
Daniel's got one that my wife would totally agree with, How I Met Your Mother. See, I would say Friends was one of my top, but How I Met Your Mother is supposed to be even better than that. I've seen a couple shows. Well, that's what she said. And I have to defer to her in this sense, because one, she's watched it, and she is an amazing writer in her own right. So That's what Daniel says. That's what my wife would say. I say Friends is up there for me. Some episodes just I actually go to YouTube and pick out little sections of episodes when I need a good laugh. Like the one where Ross goes for a spray on tan. I think that you should check that one out if you need a good laugh, if you're
The
feeling down.
tooth whitening is good. I could go with you with Friends.
Yeah, there's some great stuff there. Just to, you know, just to lighten your day if you're feeling a little cramped by all the craziness out there. Well, folks, this has been a fine episode, in my opinion, of the reality show. Of course, we'll probably see you tomorrow, maybe with the same panelists, maybe with different ones. We don't know, because we are flexible. We can adapt to changes, unlike the Luddites out there in the world who fear AI. We fear nothing, and we fear no man.
If
You wanna
we
say something,
refuse
Linda?
to be on the panel, will you guys talk about us tomorrow?
Yes, we will. I'll make sure to sling dirt, because that's just the way I roll. All right, folks. Well, that's it for the reality show. We'll see you tomorrow, and always remember to check your premises. Peace.
Ciao.